Then going to the Olympics, I was like, all right, we're here. I'm not here to just be a spectator. I'm going to compete. Steph Curry, I met him and I was like, I'm supposed to be PRing every time. And like, it wasn't happening. And I went in like, God, do what you will. I'm giving this all to you. But I also held the belief in my heart that things could wind up working in my favor.
Hey friends, it's Jay Woods. Welcome to the GPS Limitless podcast, where it's my privilege to sit down with entrepreneurs, athletes, clinicians, creatives, and other inspiring guests from a variety of backgrounds. We reflect on their journey and lived experiences to offer insight so your path can be more straightforward. In today's episode, I speak with Olympic hammer thrower and University of Cincinnati Hall of Famer Annette Echikunwoke. She recently competed in the Olympics this past summer, where she won silver, first time winning medal for the U.S. In today's episode, we discuss her experience at the Olympics, her journey to become an Olympian and professional athlete, and much more. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I do. Annette, how are you feeling today?
Good. How are you?
I mean, it's not every day that I get to be in the presence of greatness, out here setting records. It's crazy, like, when I think about it, because, like, you're honestly, like, literally, by Olympic standards, you are the second best, arguably the first, because, there's off days, best women's hammer thrower in the world. You ever think about that? Like how great you really are?
I think even though I am a professional, and like kind of like having myself in this position, it sometimes does not feel like that every day. Because I work full time right now. And I'm still training. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm this professional athlete. I have a silver medal. Like that's really fun. But then like when I get to the reality and the grind of the day, it's like I'm still doing everything it took to get the silver medal. I'm still doing the same exact things. Things haven't changed I guess just yet. And so it's kind of like, this is amazing. And then I still have to kind of go about everyday life. So it's like, it's crazy, but it's still, there's still changes that I hope to come soon. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So a lot of this in like the beginning, I want to talk about like your experience that you had this past summer. But then also afterwards, like your journey to get to that level. But, first thing that kind of caught my attention is just like you said that you're still working full time. Can you kind of elaborate on the pay structure for like Olympians? Because I feel like a lot of times, us watching on TV, you're like, oh, like they're making a bunch. They have brand deals everywhere. They're sponsored by so-and-so. Can you kind of like elaborate on that as much as you feel comfortable?
Yeah. It's not, I think there's a hierarchy in track and field in general. Most shoe brands will kind of focus more on the track events. So the sprints and the 10Ks and like, long distance and marathon, all those things. And then like when it comes to field events, there's not as much attention there, or they say, oh, people don't like to watch you guys, and it's like you're not showing us, so it's like you don't really give people the chance. And so where the camera is, that's where the money is. And so it's not as, just because I have an Olympic medal, it doesn't mean things have kind of been, it's like, oh, immediate sponsorship. I thought that's what was going to happen, but came a kind of a cruel reality that it didn't. But by God's grace, we're fine. But in terms of like the pay structure, there's different things. So with kind of the level that I'm on, there's USA Track and Field, and they like help athletes, help support them through their season. And then like some athletes will have sponsorship and some athletes won't. So a lot of athletes work part-time, some work full-time like myself, to be able to just kind of sustain and go after this dream of being an Olympian. So yeah, there's just varying ways of sponsorship. My mom will always say, or my coach will always say, just that right now your job is your biggest sponsor. So working full time, like that's my biggest sponsor, just to do what I'm doing.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it just varies with different athletes, different situations. So yeah.
Gotcha. So not to throw any shade at the track and field community, but I know that there's USA basketball gets highlighted a lot in terms of how much they make in the NBA. So I just kind of want to use that as a transition. I saw you met our boy Kevin Durant. Can you kind of talk about that experience, what that was like?
Yeah, just like that was the only time we got to meet like basically all the athletes for Team USA. because like different sports were in different places. A lot of sports were in the Olympic Village and being able to like be transported to their different venues. Basketball was like 2-3 hours away from the Olympic Village. I think soccer was also about the same distance. So that was the first time and the only time we really got to see everybody. So then, like, obviously, everybody on the USA team at least knows, like, all of those basketball players for Team USA that were coming in. So we're all like, oh my God. It was like kind of like a grand entrance a little bit.
Yeah.
So that we see LeBron come in, we see who else did we see come in?
We saw
There was
Annette come in.
all of them came in, you know. I saw Steph Curry, and usually I'm not like I don't consider myself like a super fan of anybody really.
Yeah.
But I
That's not
met
what the Instagram story says. I'm just saying.
What did you say?
So that's not what the Instagram story says. I'm just saying.
Okay, but what is it? Steph Curry, I met him and I was like, "Hi, how are you?" And he was like, "I'm doing well. How are you?" And like was waiting for me to respond. And I was like, "Hi, how are you?" Like I didn't know what else to say. It was super cool, but like it was really cool just meeting all of them and getting the chance to kind of see them. Obviously, everybody was looking to take a picture with them. Oh, take a picture, blah blah blah. So they were doing as much as they were willing to, and so it's kind of hard to kind of get in their space, but it was really cool to see them in person. So yeah.
Gotcha. So kind of like going from that, have you made like any long lasting connections from like your short time in the Olympics? You know, was it like, well, I met like one of my best friends now, or like so and so, we chat all the time, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think my roommate at the Olympics, I pray about everything. And one of the things I prayed was just to have like a solid roommate. And somebody who kind of even shared the same faith as me. And so it was actually Katora Orji. She's an 8-time NCAA champion, 3-time Olympic finalist. She's the same age as me. And I'm like, girl, like I thought she was older than me, honestly, just for how much she's accomplished. She's also oh my God, why am I forgetting this award? It's like the big award in track and field, but it's kind of like the Heisman equivalent in track and field. And the Bowerman, she's like a Bowerman winner and all the things. So like, she was super cool, super down to earth, had a great experience with her from like the beginning to the end, and someone I'll consider a friend for time to come. So I'm grateful for that experience with her.
That's what's up. I feel that. So like when you guys had downtime, was there like much downtime? Did you guys get to do much, or was it kind of like focusing, I'm trying to win gold right now?
I think, downtime for most athletes is laying in bed. Like maybe there's some active recovery. You're like rolling, doing something. But anytime we were in our rooms, like if we were not going to practice, we were not eating. If we were not, going to like, I don't know, try a snack or something somewhere, we were just laying in bed and like recovering. That's the biggest thing. That's a huge key component to be successful as an athlete is recovery. So yeah, we were doing that and then we would chat. So that was it. But yeah, downtime wasn't crazy amount of downtime.
Okay.
So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
Did you bring any of the, stunning fits that you have usually?
I
also,
did.
for you guys that don't know, Annette is a little bit of a fashionista.
Thank you.
The nails are popping today, by the way. Didn't mention that earlier.
Thank you so much. I have I don't know if you can see it here, but I have a smiley face and then one of them has a little tongue out.
Oh, wait. I feel it, though.
That's my jam. Yeah.
So the fits, though, what were they looking like over in the Olympics? Did you...
They were great. My biggest thing going to the Olympics was like keeping things as normal as possible and not doing too much beyond like practice and just recovery and stuff, like up until I like actually like competed. So my fits were for after the meet because I wasn't going anywhere really. But my birthday happened in the Olympic Village, so I was like, of course I have to bring outfits, like of course.
Right.
Yeah, so I had some outfits there. I don't think I take enough pictures of anything or share enough of my journey, but that's something I'm going to start changing here very soon. But yeah, no, the fits were fun. Like I like a lot of like kind of like smaller or like not as super big brands, like kind of indie brands a little bit of designers that I really just like their story and stuff like that. So like one of my favorite outfits, it was like we had dinner after the Olympic final and it was these like pants from this Ghanaian designer based in LA, Kwame Adesue, and these kind of like flared out pants and then like a halter black top. It was an all black fit, very simple, but like structure and the silhouette of it. Like I love stuff like that and playing with fashion in that sense. So yeah, that's a passion of mine or enthusiasm that I have. So yeah.
That's what's up. So kind of more on like the actual like event aspect of the Olympics. You know, what is it like when you first walk out there? You know, a lot of emotions, nervousness, excitement.
Honestly, if I like take you through like the whole thing, so there was the qualification round and then there was the final that happened. So qualification, genuinely how I felt very prepared coming into the Olympics because prior to the Olympic trials, I did not have the season that I thought I was going to have.
Right.
And I was kind of like, shoot, like, I don't know, like I'm supposed to be PRing every time and like it wasn't happening. Started off strong, kind of hit a nosedive and it was weird because I was investing more into what I was doing for the season. So I was like, what is going on? And so going to the trials, I was like, you know what, God, if you want me to do this, you're gonna have to like give me the strength and give me the ability because clearly I can't do it right now. I don't know what's going on. So I had that and I went in like, God, do what you will. I'm giving this all to you. But I also held the belief in my heart that things could wind up working in my favor. And that happened where I ended up winning the trials. Then going to the Olympics, I was like, all right, we're here. I'm not here to just be a spectator. I'm going to compete. And so going into the qualification round, I was like, okay, I already know the qualification number. It was like 73 meters. I can do that. Like, let's just get this over with. That's how I felt in qualification. It wasn't nervousness. It wasn't like, oh my God, I hope I do. It was just literally like, let's just get this over with because I'm going to the final. There's no ifs, ands, buts.
I saw you in between throws. You had your game face on. I was like, oh, and that's about it.
I was trying, like I have a good time. Like I wouldn't say I'm super competitive in nature, like naturally, but I know how to make sure I best myself in every competition. And so that's what I was trying to do. What does that look like for me? It's usually like more of an intrinsic internal processing. And I'll just kind of like really pump myself up from there. And I'm like, okay, well, I did this last time. I can do this time. And so, yeah, it was just like for qualification, I was like, let's just get that thing out there. And I think I was the only one in qualification to hit the qualifying mark in the first round and be done. It was one situation. And I was like, okay, period. Like that's thank God. Because I was like, I didn't want to stay out there and be trying to do this. And what was even funnier about that was I thought we had 3 times to go in the ring. So typically before the competition, you have a couple times, like 2 to 3 times, depending on the meet, to go into the ring and do practice throws. And then they start the meet. And I thought we had 3 times in the ring. We only had 2 times in the ring. So the third time I went into the ring. Before that, I had talked to my coach and I was like, Coach, like, I don't really like, I'm like, okay, I kind of messed up this. Like, we need to do this like a lot better. And she was like, okay, yeah, let's focus on that going into the ring. I was like, cool. So I go in the third time thinking it's a warm up and they're like, okay, mark it. It's like, but it qualified. And I was like, okay, great. Like, it's important.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of funny when I look back at that. But then going into the final was like, okay, like, and this even coming into the Olympics, I was like, if I medal, which I feel like I have a good chance at medaling, I will be the first one to medal for the U.S. for women ever. And so I was like, okay. What did you say?
I just want to say shout out Annette.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Like, I believe I can do it. And so going into the final, it was like, okay, we're going to get this medal. But it wasn't like, oh my God, I have to like it wasn't like stressing me out. It was just like, Lord, I feel like you've called me to do this. Because coming out of college, I didn't even want to do this. And I'm like, I've been working for it. And I'm like, you've given me the passion. You've given me the strength to even just do this on the daily. Let's execute, let's make this worthwhile. And I think that's exactly what happened and ended up getting second and getting the silver. So, yeah.
So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, you had like out of the people throwing, you were like first and then the Canadian came in and then she ended up like going past what you had. Did that like rub you in any type of way when you saw that she overthrew you? Like you going from first to now second when you could have like been at that first place?
Well, I think like as anybody in competition would, like you want to be first. You want to do the best. And so like it didn't rub me the wrong way because I knew she could throw past me. and it also didn't rub me the wrong way because me and my coach we look at numbers and we had looked at what had won the past couple Olympics and like kind of just the stats even going to qualifying and all of those things. And so even though I threw that mark that was in first place for a time, I knew I would have to throw farther, and I felt primed to throw farther, but I knew I would have to throw farther to really solidify first place. And so I think that's what I was straining for a little bit. And I feel like with hammer, or just like any event, but hammer, from my experience, like you try too hard and it doesn't go the way you want. And so I was like, like I felt like I was trying too hard where the other ones kind of flowed a lot better. And I feel like, like she saw her throw that mark and I was like, let me try, and then tried too hard, didn't get it as far out as I wanted to, didn't get it farther out, but it's still a medal at the end of the day. So we got to be thankful. But I think initially when I saw it on my face, I felt it on my face. I was like, yay, Olympic medal. But I was like, I wanted gold. Yeah. But I'm grateful for the outcome because it's been amazing. So
I feel that. And then, of course, with winning that medal, I've noticed you were on a little press run. If you want to include mine in there, you can. But, I'm obviously small time. But how's that press run been for you?
It's been fun. I'm not even gonna lie, it's been a little overwhelming at some moments, but it's been fun overall, like just having new experiences, speaking engagements, like brand trips, like little things like that where it's just like I wouldn't have experienced had it not been for the Olympics. So it's been a new facet of life that's I've kind of been adjusting to, transitioning into. It's been busy though, like ever since the Olympics. But it's been cool, and I'm excited for more. I think there's more things lined up in the new year and more things to come. So, yeah.
Favorite event or opportunity that you've been a part of so far in the past year?
Definitely the Tarte brand trip. Okay. I did that it was the same weekend as New York Fashion Week, and went out there with the Tarte team, and it was really fun. And like, it was like I saw Mary J. Blige, Idris Elba's daughter was DJing, and just like other Olympians were there, and then just like celebrities and influencers were there, and it was really cool. Like, it was a fun experience to have, and was dressed up and looked great. So I felt like it just matched my whole jam. It was a good time. Yeah.
So like, not to like put any damper on anything, but I know this is separate from athletes, but in terms of like touring with concerts, there's like a post-tour, they call it like post-tour blues, where like you go from like that high of, having all that attention and whatnot to like going back to more normal day to day. Did you experience anything where you're like, man, like I really miss everything I was doing this past few months?
I think with the initial, like the Olympics, having like a blues from that, I don't think I had a blues from that. That's what I'll say. I think, the blues, or kind of the adjustment that's been happening, is just like the transition of like still managing my everyday life the same way I have, like working a job, training, and then recovery and all of those things, and then managing this stuff in addition, and like feeling like I have like no time. So I wouldn't say that like the blues of the Olympics are like, oh, I wish I could go back to that moment, because it was prior to the competition, it was very regimented for me, because I'm not doing anything that's outside of the normal for me. I'm not going to go explore different events. Like, this is not the time. So it was like very regimented. And I feel like sometimes I'm not the most regimented, even as an Olympic athlete. Like, I do my practice, I do my thing. And then outside of that, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, like I need a break somewhere. And I feel like it's just, I've had less of breaks and less of time to just waste. So I really have to like be on it. And so I think that's like I don't want to say sadness, but like the hardness of this time post the Olympics. So I think that's my Olympic blues, if I were to say. Now I feel like maybe it would be different if I was like full-time athlete, didn't have much else to think about outside of athletics. Maybe it would be a different story. I don't know. But I feel like that time was that time, and then there's more to come. So I feel like I'm more looking forward to the future than thinking, okay, like the Olympics are over, like what do I do with myself? Because I have enough to do.
Gotcha. And then, for those who don't know, I mean, are you okay with me saying your age or whatever? Anyways, for you guys who don't know, Annette is 29. This was her first time in the Olympics in terms of actually competing, but she did have a go with Nigeria, her home country, a few years back. So I just want to ask you, Annette, do you think the experience of an Olympian is vastly different from coming in very young versus like being older? Not saying you're older, but like I know that there are people that are, 30 something competing. Do you think their experience in the Olympics is completely different from like, young 20 some? Or is it pretty much everyone is just their own person?
I think honestly, yeah, like when I went to the Olympics in 2021, I was 24, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, no, 23,
You can't both not do
25,
math.
25.
No.
I know, I was 25. I'm trying to, because the Olympics are weird. It's
No,
usually
I
four
got you.
years, 3 years. Yeah, I was 23, and then this one I was 28. Had my 28th birthday there in Paris this year, and then I had my 25th birthday in Tokyo, and yeah, that wasn't a great experience. But like, yeah, I think everybody's Olympic experience is different. There's so many different events, so many different times where you peak. Like as a thrower, you peak a little later, actually. So this is prime time for me. You peak a little later because it's such a technical event.
Mm-hmm.
Learn it maybe in high school, if you're lucky, maybe junior high, middle school. So you peak a little later. And so being older is actually a little bit more an advantage if you can take care of your body, make sure it's prime, and you can be free from injury, or at least deal with injury that you have. And you come into these events a lot more seasoned, a lot more sure of yourself. I think the last Olympics for me, I was just super excited, like super excited. Obviously, it's my first Olympics, like you qualified and all that stuff, and doing it for Nigeria at the time, which was my family's home country, my parents' home country. But it was exciting, and then the experience kind of got ripped away. So it was a little rough to deal with that. But this time, like going in with the U.S. and we'll be going with the U.S. forward, it was a lot more. It was a lot more sure, a lot more exciting. And I just came there with like, I already know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm not here to play around.
Mm-hmm.
The other one wasn't there to play around either. But I think that experience, because it's all new, it's all novel,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much more excitement. You're meeting people for the first time. It's a whole, different experience. Whereas this one, it was like, okay, yeah, I've seen these people in action before. I've had meets with them. I've been on the pro circuit for a little bit. Nothing is new to me in the sense of, I don't know how to function at this high level meet. I've been at high level meets. Now it's just like all this fun stuff that's going around with the Olympics. That's great, but we have to like stay here and focus. So I think there's just a more of a focus, and like later you will have time to have fun. But for right now, I think it's like there's more of a focus. And I had that then, but I think it's just the newness and the novelty of the Olympics was just exciting for me. And I held more to that. Whereas this time it was like, yes, we're in Paris. It's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's kind of like the same. You're doing the same thing in a different location. So, yeah.
So if you're okay saying, I don't know, I don't want to like mess up any potential future things, but do you have a preference for if you want to go back for the Nigerian route, or are you going to stick with Team US?
So people ask that, and it's actually, it's not an easy just switch back and forth kind of situation. At the time, it was painful to go with Nigeria and them kind of like not hold up their end of the bargain, wasn't able to compete. It was not great. And I didn't wish that. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But also I learned that admin was not handling things well in general. Prior to me going with the Nigerian team, my parents, who are born and raised in Nigeria, were like, are you sure you want to go with Nigeria? Because we know our people, we know how they act, we know how the government is. Are you sure? And I knew a little bit of it, obviously. I was like, oh yeah, it should be fine. Never dealt with the Nigerian Federation in any way prior to my experience at the Olympics. So even up to the season, I was only talking with one person, which was the throws coach for them. And it was just keeping him updated on what was going on with my season. It wasn't like anything beyond that. But then going into the Olympics, having that experience where 10 of us athletes out of the 23 that they brought could not compete. And seeing how they manage that, and then hearing of other people's experiences, all these things I did not know prior. I learned a lot, and I was like, as painful as it was then, it was a godsend. It's a blessing now, because if I would have competed for them, I would not have been able to compete for the US, or it would have been a way different journey. Because if you are competing for a country, if you compete for a country and you were like want to switch your allegiance to compete for another country, you have to sit out for 3 years. So
Gotcha.
I made the for the US in 2022 for the World Championship. I would not have been able to do that had I competed for Nigeria in 2021 at the Olympics. So as much as painful as that was, it wouldn't have afforded me the opportunity to have that experience being on a US team prior to this. I could have I would have been able to, still compete for the US, obviously, because that 3-year time frame would have been over, but it would have been a different experience not being able to kind of be with the team, be at this high level and experience that. It would have been, again, another novelty that I would have been going in with in the Olympics. So I think the way things worked out was God's intention. But I didn't know it then at the time that like, oh, me not being able to compete would have helped me in the long run now. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So just kind of like a transition here for all the listeners. And I appreciate you sharing your experience that you've had so far in your most recent Olympic bout. But if you can kind of, for this next part, kind of share how you got to this point. Kind of want to start off with like the college recruitment process, and then move into being a collegiate athlete at the D1 level while also balancing your major, and then post-grad. So just starting off, can you kind of like give an overview of the recruitment process, what that looks like? I know currently you're very close with your coach. Was that the same coach that recruited you, or how did things work with that?
Yeah, that's the same coach that recruited me. It's funny because I look back at like how she recruited me, and the first phone call I got from her, I remember like going upstairs to like go take a nap in like the middle of the day. I think it was a weekend or something, and she had called me, and I had never heard a German accent. She's East German, never heard a German accent.
Yeah.
And she called me, and I thought somebody was prank calling me. It sounds so terrible. I thought someone was prank calling me. I was like, who is this? Like, what accent is this? And she was like, oh, I'm Susan Seaton, the head coach at UC. I was like, whoa, okay, so sorry. Hey, how are you? Woke up. All right, that's all I needed. And
Had you guys already been in contact before the call, or was it just out of the blue for you?
No, I was interested in UC a little bit at the time. And my coach in high school, or the coach I was working with, had written an email to the coach about me and just my interest there. So we were kind of putting out feelers at different universities, and so she ended up reaching back, and it kind of just went from there. So I was recruited from a couple different places, but ended up choosing 4 official visits. So one of them was UC, obviously, Akron University, OU, Penn State, and yeah, that was it. And went on all of those, but I think ultimately I felt like UC was the best fit. And the biggest things for me there at the time were, one, that I felt like the team felt like a family. I felt like in high school, my team did not feel like that. Everybody was very segmented into their own event groups. But I was a team captain, so I really enjoyed bringing the team together when I could. And so that's something I wanted already in the team atmosphere. And I felt that immediately. Like there was one time I went to the locker room and I could tell they were all different event groups. And they were like, oh, hi, my name is this. My name is this. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. And that's what happened on my visit. That was one of many kind of occurrences like that on my visit. So I felt like they checked the box there. Another thing for me was I was very unsure of my major coming into college. I was like, my parents wanted me to do STEM. I was like, STEM, what? And I was like, my mom was like, oh, I want you to be an engineer for NASA. And I was like, what? I don't want to go to space. I don't want to do anything. I want to engineer. But I guess, I think because I'm Nigerian, obviously, my parents, Nigerians really pride themselves on having professional careers, and my parents just wanted me to follow that path, and I really had no interest. But I was like, okay, I'll start here and see how it kind of works out. And so that was I wanted a place that had a good engineering program, but if I were to switch programs, which I kind of had in my head already, I think I wanted to have a place where it's okay, engineering is not the only thing that they're good at in terms of majors. So that was a big thing. And then I wanted some place that was far enough from home that my parents couldn't come and visit me every day, but close enough where I could go home for a weekend and not feel like traveling was the majority of that process. And so I felt like UC, I'm from Columbus, Ohio originally, and UC
Shout out
was
to
only 2
Columbus.
hours.
She does have the key to the cities, by the way.
Okay, period.
Like
Yes, we
literally, she
do.
was
So
aware of the key of the city. Just throwing it out there.
yeah. So yeah, those were like my big things looking at a school. And so I felt like UC checked all those boxes, and that's how I ended up here. Yeah.
Gotcha. So for like the high school athletes out there, would you say you need to be at a certain level by like this year in high school? Or is it kind of like you can still make a comeback junior, senior season and still get recruited at like the D1 level?
So I want to say it was actually my junior year that I got like a big mark that kind of had me noticed by people. So prior to that, I remember hearing from like a family friend, and they ended up going to, or not a family friend, but like a teammate at another school. We'll say that. Her parents were like, "Oh yeah, like if she throws 40 feet in the shot put, like she'll get recruited, and like he'll definitely be recruited if you throw that." So that was my goal. I was like, "Okay, I heard that. I don't want to pay for school. This can do that. Let's see if we can do that." I don't want my parents to pay for school, so I'm like, "Let's see if that will help that process." So I'm like, "Okay, 40 feet. Let's do that in the shot put," and that was my goal. Like literally, like going sophomore, junior year. And so like it was like a check in every meet basically with my dad. Like he's like, "Did you do it yet?" And I'm like, "No, not yet at 336." Just trying. Like if I'm like, okay, 40 was like the magic number essentially that I was like aiming for. And so doing that, and then also, but then like my junior year or like state's junior year, I ended up throwing 44 feet, and then like started to get contacted by universities from there. And so that was pretty amazing. That was like a fun time for me. But I think in terms of just like the golden, like I don't think there's really like a golden rule. Obviously, do it before colleges like are really like heavily like recruiting you in your class if you can't. Yeah, 'cause I think junior year is when they start looking. Junior or early senior year is when they start looking at high schoolers to like recruit them and stuff. Like,
Gotcha.
yeah, I think it's like the
Like
big
kind of looking
time
back
when
on it though, do you think you should try to just specialize in one event or kind of like throw all the feelers out there, like do shot put, discus, and hammer? Or just be like, if you want to go for shot put, do strictly shot put. Focus all your attention on there. And then also kind of like a double question with that. Do you think in today's age that you for sure need a trainer slash coach outside of the high school, or can you do it like all on your own to get to not necessarily Olympic, but just to get to that next level of Division I college?
I think with the points of the recruiting, you sorry, can you actually repeat that first question? My brain
The
went
first
like,
part. So, do you think you should diversify your events? Shot put, discus,
oh,
hammer, or just focus solely on one to get your name out there?
I think honestly, I'm a big believer in being great at one versus being good at all the things. But I think it also depends on the conference you might be heading to. So if you know the school that you're like really passionate about going to, and you look at the conference, and like it really depends on the conference. I feel like with UC, for example, like they were in the Big East before I came, and then they moved to the American Athletic Conference. So what the biggest thing there is like they don't have any limits on how many people you can put in events. So if you're good at like a broad amount of events, that's helpful team when it comes to conference. And so I think that's something to be mindful of. If you're going into like a Big 12 school, or like, which now UC is in the Big 12, or just like one of those Power Five conferences, like you want, like, I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's better to be great at one event, because you for sure will get points in one event if you're great at one versus being, unless you're great at all of them, which there are people who are like that. But I think it's better to specialize at one than to just be good at all of them,
Gotcha.
in my opinion. But I could be wrong. I'm not a coach. This is just from what I've observed.
Okay. And then the second part of that question, do you think to get to the collegiate level at D1 that you need an outside trainer, or do you think you can do it mostly with just your school staff that's there?
I think some people do that, and that's great. I think with track and field, it's like one of the events, or one of the sports that has like the lowest barrier of entry, and really just kind of showcases more natural talent. than anything. I think if you're so passionate and you're like, I have to get recruited, get that outside coaching, get that private coaching if it's so worth it to you. I think if it's worth it to you, do it. But I feel like for me, I feel like for me, just having the coaching and just wanting to be good was good enough for me in high school. I didn't have any private coaching or anything like that. So I just kind of just went to practice after school, and that was that for me. But yeah, I think I think it depends on your level of passion and how much do you want it
I
to
got
at
you.
the end of it. You really want to be like you're determined to be recruited, and you're like, I don't think I'm going to get a breakthrough by myself or just with the coaching I have at school, because but one of the things is in high schools especially is that not a lot of people know about throwing. Like I had 4 different coaches in my 4 years of high school of throwing, because people just don't know what to do. They're like, oh, I watched a video on YouTube, I'm here to help. And that's literally like, and the only
Gotcha.
consistent coach I had was from the boys coach at the time, who was always there all the 4 years I was there. And he wouldn't even be able to coach me until the end of the season because he had a full boys team. And so that's kind of what you get. So it really depends on the situation that's available to you. So sometimes it is just necessary to have private coaching, because the school systems aren't really prioritizing it as much. So you have to kind of just like, okay, I know I'm not going to, like, my coach only knows one YouTube video. I need to go and I need to go find something else for myself. And there's even a lot of situations where I've seen a couple situations where a lot of people are just coached by their parents who were throwers prior. So it's like it's private coaching, but it's your mom, or dad, or whatever. So it just really depends on the situation, I think.
I got you. So, transitioning from the high school level into the college level, what was it like making that transition your first year?
I was excited my first year. I think everything new and novel. I was out of the house for the first time. Like everything new and novel was just like fun for me, and just having freedom was really fun. But I knew coming on the team, I'm like, I want to be good. I want to contribute to the team. They didn't recruit me at this level just to come and just play games. So I was like, let me come and contribute to the team. That was my biggest thing. Like,
Yeah.
like into this day, like, I mean, I'm not on the team anymore, but like when I would get the most nervous was at like conference, because that was like, it meant something to the team. Like the points I was contributing had to like add to the team. And so I wanted to be a person that added to the team and did well. And so that's something I wouldn't say I prided myself on, but that was something I was always aiming to do every single year, is to add. And so I feel like I accomplished that. But I think in terms of my freshman year, it was just adjusting and meeting new people, and just like adjusting to like the social life part, the school life part, the training, all of that in one kind of big bubble that is college, that is university. And
Was that transition smooth, or was it kind of difficult?
It was smooth on most aspects. I feel like academically, especially because I'm a very results driven person, I was like, I don't even see myself being an engineer. So I did not take my engineering classes that seriously, if I'm being honest. And I will say, so guys, me and Jay were in LSAMP. We were in E3 together. That's how we met. And I think maybe 2 people, maybe 3 out of the group of like, I don't know how many
It was
of
like
us.
40 people. Just to let everyone know, it was kind of like a summer bridge program from high school to college. But yeah, sorry, continue.
I think maybe 5 out of the 40 were ended up being engineers. The rest of us, like, change majors, are not engineers. So like, I feel like none of us knew what we were doing, but like me included, especially.
No shade to LSAMP though. Just putting out there, LSAMP is a great program.
People I will know for the rest of my life, was great in terms of collaboration. That's something they honed in. But I think I just was not really excited about engineering. And so I feel like that's a part that kind of faltered, if I'm being honest, my freshman year, because I just was not like looking forward to the idea of being an engineer. And so I think that's the part I kind of let slide, because I'm like, okay, like track is going well, social is going well, but like school, and ended up switching my major to be a mathematics major. I was really trying to stay in that STEM bubble, but like eventually ended up actually switching my last semester to interdisciplinary studies. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then grad school ended up going to marketing, and that's what I do now. And so I love that. I think that's an industry I want to stay in. So yeah.
Gotcha. And then, so I know, every program has their standards and expectations. Do you feel like the expectations were gradual build up from freshman to senior year of competing, or was it just like, no, all in right now, never slip up once. I need for you to be thrown this distance, et cetera, et cetera?
I think, yeah, there was definitely an expectation set. I was seeing what the older girls were doing on the team. I had a lot of mentors, whether it was knowingly or unknowingly on the team, in my group specifically, and they were showing me what they were doing, and I was like, oh, I think I can do that. Like, and even in some instances, was surpassing them, but like I feel like I met the expectation in my freshman year and moving beyond. Like I went from my first year, like in the weight throw, I was like, what the heck am I doing? I couldn't even throw in the sector, to count a throw. And then and then ended up that freshman year, that second semester when we had conference, ended up like placing top three in the conference. So like it was I feel like I met the expectations in a lot of ways and even surpassed them, honestly, for myself. I just did my best. Like I'm like, I can do good. I have a lot of raw power. And it was just me working with me and my coach, like working together is just like honing in on the technical aspect. Cause that's the part I really barely had experience on. So
Gotcha.
that was a big.
And then I know like you threw hammer for like the Olympics and professionally, but like when you were in college, did you try to, I know you did multiple events in college, but like, did you try to focus more on hammer when you would practice, or was it like, I just happened to hammer take the lead, it just happened that way?
Yeah, I feel like the hammer chose me in a lot of ways, like doing it now professionally. But I think at the time, like my freshman year, like weight throw, like I was pretty strong and it's closer to the body, so it's a little bit easier to control. Hammer was so far away from the body, it was like way more technical. And I was like, yeah, this is gonna have to miss me. So like my freshman year was like, I think I threw 49 meters, and like I was like, okay, that was fun little trial, And then my sophomore year, it was like a 180, and I threw really, really well, I would say, and so much so that I made it to nationals and placed top 8. So like that was like kind of like a 180 in terms of like just experiencing the hammer and doing the hammer. And I didn't see myself doing this professionally to begin with, but as time went on, it kind of was like, okay, I think this is if I were to go professionally and do this post track life, I would do the hammer. And so that's kind of how that happened.
Gotcha. And then kind of going like off that, with the professional route, I kind of want to transition to combo for after college. I know you keep on saying that you didn't really plan on throwing. And I'm kind of sorry, I'm not going to lie, Annette. Sometimes I take a little pride in doing a little research, and I was like, yeah, I'm bringing this up. And she's like, dang, she brought it up multiple times now. But anyways, can you kind of like elaborate in terms of like what that feeling was like, and if you experienced burnout, and how you managed that, or if it was other factors that played a role into you not wanting to compete professionally?
Yeah, I think frankly, like my biggest thing was that I had seen or heard of stories of other athletes doing track and field professionally. And it was not an easy route. That's what I'll say. Track and field is not like the most sought after event or a sporting event in the US, right? Mm-hmm. So like it's basketball, it's football, and then anything else is kind of secondary a little bit. And for me, I was like, and when I'm saying this, I'm talking honestly in the financial sense. I was like, okay, I don't want to be struggling tracking. They were sprinters that I'm like referring to and thinking of. Like sprinting is like kind of the top tier when it comes to like, okay, you're going to do well. If you do well in that, like you're going to be fine financially with track and field, and like, that's cool. And there's even struggles in that from what I've heard. But I just was like, well, throwing is kind of the bottom of the totem pole in track and field. And I just was like, I've lived a relatively good life. Mm-hmm. I don't think I really want to be there. I'm just going to go live my life how I want. And I felt like, honestly, God was kind of calling me to do this and just affirming it in so many ways that I had to be obedient. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, Lord, but you got to help me. And so like, And somebody made a joke of this when I talked to them about it. It made me laugh. I was like, God, I don't want to work a 9 to 5. Like, they were like, well, he answered your prayer because you're only working 8 to 3. So like that's like oh my God, please. But yeah, it was. I ended up coming out of college in like September of graduating. So 2019 is when I graduated from my master's in May. And then September is when I got my job full time to work in marketing. So it was my first, like, I was a little associate at this marketing media agency, but then also training. But I feel like I got really blessed in that because I made it a point going into interviews, like I'm gonna tell people like, hey, I'm also, training as a full-time athlete, like on the side, but I am prioritizing like the work that I'll have to do here. And I remember even one place like I went to, which was definitely a pyramid scheme. They were like, hey, like you can, like, this is gonna be your schedule. I was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, that's never gonna work out like any. And I was like, period. Thank you for your time. Like, go now. And I remember at my company now, like, my director at the time, she was like, I had mentioned it to her, and she was very nonchalant, very chill. And so I was like, I wonder if she heard me, because usually people kind of have a bit. I was like, okay, and then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna give it a couple weeks, and then I'll ask her to adjust my schedule. And like first day of work, she like sits me down and she's like, how was it? And I was telling her, and she's like, okay, great. Like, so I remember you telling me about your like track thing. Like, we want to support you here. Like, what do you need from us? All this stuff. And so like we were able to make adjustments off the bat. And I felt very blessed in that situation because I know that's not always the case for people, like where they're like employees super understanding and like, oh yeah, we want to support you. And so I felt really blessed in that case.
So like, just to clarify, can you kind of give like a brief rundown of what that training schedule was? You don't have to go like super detail, but just like time and that.
Yeah, basically I would kind of work every day from 7:30 to 3 at work, and then and then after work would go straight to practice. And so like 3:30, 3:45 to 6:37 I'm training. So that's every day, Monday through Friday, and then I would still also train on Saturdays, and that's still my schedule now. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Gotcha. And that's been primarily with like your same coach that you've had from UC?
Yep, same
coach
like
from UC. Is that
like
common in the track and field world to stick with the same coach?
It's common for field events, so jumpers and throwers. It is at sprinters. They have like training groups all over the country and like hubs in like Texas and Florida and Atlanta. So some of them will end up just going to like a professional coach because they can pay the coach and then also train in a group of people. But with throwers and jumpers, typically we will have we will typically, if you like your college coach, you'll probably stay with your college coach in terms of training. So that's typically what happens.
Gotcha. And if someone is like competing professionally, at what point do they say, I'm going to try out for the Olympics, or I'm going to not Olympics? I know there's a step before that. Like in terms of like the world and USA track and field, is it more so of like you put your name out there, or is it you get invited, we'll see you type thing?
So there's an Olympic trials standard to even be able to go to the Olympic trials, because obviously I think a lot of people in the U.S., if you're doing track and field, like I feel like anybody will want to do it at the highest level, right? So like at least in college, you learn a lot more, and you're like, oh, I want to go to the Olympic trials. Like there's people who miss those marks all the time because there's like a certain standard that they even have just to make it to the trials, because there's so many people who want to come to the trials. So you have to make that first to even qualify. You get yourself out there, and then you have to place top 3 on the day to make the Olympic team.
Are you saying top 4 at the USA meet or top 4 at like what specific?
Yeah, top three at the US trials.
Okay. And then for like the US trials though, was that like they had to reach out to you, or did you reach out to them per se?
No, it's just like a simple registration process, but as with the mark, you have to tell them what mark it is, and then they'll have to accept or deny you. But they typically, like, they have a certain mark. I can't remember what the mark was for the trials this year, but they have a certain mark, a standard that you have to meet, and if you make that, they'll accept you, and if you don't, they will deny you, or they try to fill the field. So for the trials, I believe it's 32 people at the trials. And then like from there, they'll do qualification. Top 12 will go from qualification to the final. And then top 12 will kind of duke it out for the top 3 spots.
Gotcha. So last little bit here, I kind of want to finish out with like a rapid fire tip type round. So, looking back at younger Annette, if you had to give yourself a piece of advice or two, whatever, 1 or 2 pieces, at the high school level, college level, and post-grad, what's like your advice that you would give yourself or someone in general wanting to compete at such a high level?
I think for me,
So hold on real quick. Just start with the high school version of you, right? What you would tell them. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the high school version of me, I would just tell her that things are going to work out. They're going to be fine. I think for myself, as much as I'm like, oh yeah, as long as I'm good, I'll be fine. But I know for me, good is a high standard. If I'm being honest, I have a high standard for myself. And so being okay, like knowing things are going to work out, because I'm like, as much as I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I want, I just want to be good, whatever. Like I want to be good, but I want to be good at the highest level.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to just play around and do all this stuff for no reason. And so I think honestly to my younger self would be like, everything's going to be fine, everything's going to work out, because I think there was that stress a little bit of like hoping like this track thing will work out and I'll be recruited, then the stress of like deciding what university to go to, and just like the stress of like kind of adjusting to like that first year and hoping that like I do well. Like I think it was just a lot of stresses for me in that, and like knowing, like believing I could do well, but like what does well actually look like in the context of things, and like being able to match that. And so I think the biggest thing for me is just for the younger self for high school, and that is just like take a deep breath and everything will work out. It's gonna be fine.
Gotcha. And then to your college self?
To my college self, life is going to be unexpected in a lot of ways, but keep doing what God has told you to do. Just keep doing and he will orchestrate the rest. So that's what I even tell myself now. So
I feel that. And then now, being a silver medalist, Olympian, whatnot, telling a post-grad Annette what you would tell her.
Post-grad Annette, same thing.
The medal's on the way. But yeah, sorry. I just made a little joke out of that.
A medal on the way? What would I even tell her for real? Yeah, it's going to be 5 years. Mm-hmm. It's going to be 5 years and you just have to keep working every day. Like it's not an easy grind for sure, but like there's hope at the end of the tunnel and it's going to be brighter and bigger in the future, and just keep believing that. I think just keeping that belief that things are going to work out, regardless of what you see in front of you. That's huge. So yeah.
Gotcha. All right, Nat, so that's pretty much all that I had today. Thank you for your time so much. Real quick before you guys go, I want to give Annette the chance to give a GPS Limitless shout out. Here at GPS, we're big on making your path more straightforward. So Annette, is there anyone that you would like to shout out, whether it be peer, coach, family member, that you feel has made your path more straightforward?
Shout out my coach. And I think that's like in a lot of ways, it's an obvious one, but I think more than anything in sports and life in general, a lot of it is mental. Being at the highest level of anything, a lot of it is mental. You will train your body day in and day out, but the mental aspect is huge. I think it's 90% when it comes to competition and everything like that. And so I feel like more than my coach just helping me develop as an athlete and my technical skill and things like that, like she's been really strong in helping me in my mental. I think I've always been strong mentally, which I thank God for, but just honing that in more and kind of holding to ideals that have helped me be more secure and feel more strong going into competitions, has come a lot from her advice. And so I credit her for that. And so that's my GPS Limitless shout out.
Gotcha. That was very deep and like respectful. Shout out, coach. All right, so that concludes everything for today. Annette, if people want to reach out to you or get in contact with you, see more about you, where can they reach you at?
Yeah, I think my IG is like the biggest thing. Gonna be posting there more here shortly, but it's at Annette _Echiku at ANNETTE _ECHIKU, and TikTok. I have a TikTok. It's like the same as my IG without the underscore. it's just for fun. Maybe I'll post more there too. Who knows? But yeah, for now, those are my two main platforms.
Gotcha. I'll include both those in the description if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on any podcasting platform, it'll be in the show notes. Once again, Annette, thank you for your time. It was great being in the presence of greatness.